Are you secretly a fish? Now that's just absurd. I can't even believe you'd ask such a... Can you believe it's the end of the year already? I had a blast fishing this year, and it was great getting to share those moments on this channel too. To finish off the year, I'm answering all your questions about fishing, myself, and everything in between. I put out a community post for a Q&A and got over 50 responses. Thanks to everyone who asked questions, and let's get right into it. What's your favorite brand of fishing lure? It's gotta be Rapala. Rapala has a bunch of great lures that I use. Floating minnow, the husky jerk, the shad wrap. They even got inline spinners too, since they own Blue Fox. If there's only one more brand I could use for the rest of my days, hands down, it's Rapala. Will you ever try fly fishing? Yes, I think I'm gonna try and get in fly rod next year. I have no real fly fishing experience, but at the very least I know a lot of the spots I'm fishing at already are perfect fly fishing spots. Do you use baitcasters? If so, what's your favorite? I've actually never used a baitcaster. Maybe I'm missing out. I know some people swear by them, and I'll admit it sounds really cool when you cast one with a braid line. But yeah, I haven't tried one yet. I'd probably get a fly fishing setup first, but maybe I'll get a baitcaster setup too someday. What's your favorite inline spinner color? I use this black rooster tail color more than anything. Pretty much the only time I don't use it is when it isn't in stock, to which I'll use the glitter black color. I'm very biased towards the natural colors, and I tend to prefer a silver blade over gold. What brand of inline spinner is best for around 1/16 to 1/8 ounce size? Honestly, you can't go wrong with any of the big name brands. I use rooster tails more than anything, but I also really love the Panther Martin. The only reason I really go for rooster tails more is because they're cheaper, and price matters a lot with those small inline spinners because you get them snagged on everything. Would you suggest making your own inline spinners? Absolutely. In fact, if you go back to the first video on this channel, every fish in that video was caught off an inline spinner I made from a kit. Just make sure that you also have a pair of pliers to bend the wire, and I would also recommend getting a fly tying vise just to hold it in place. Makes it much easier to assemble. What made you start fishing? And who brought you into fishing? So my dad got me into fishing around 3 years old, and I fished a ton with him throughout my childhood. For one reason or another, I kind of stopped around my teenage years and only fished a few times up until last year when my father-in-law asked me if I had any interest in fishing. I bought some gear to go fishing with him and figured I'd try a few times on my own just to get used to it again, and that few times turned into a lot, and I got completely hooked on fishing once again. What makes you love fishing? So there are a few things that really drive me to go fishing. I think the most important to me is just being out there and exploring God's creation in nature. Fishing isn't all about catching fish, and I really just love being able to go out there, explore a new spot, and learn about the plants and the animals around me. I also sit in front of a computer all day in my day job, so it's really nice to be able to go outside and unwind after a long day of work. There's also just a surprise element about catching a fish that I really love. It is so much fun just to land a fish in a spot that you would never expect it to be in. A good example of this happened earlier this year actually, where I was trying to catch my first rainbow trout, and I went the whole day with no luck. I ended up trying a few casts at a marsh on the way home, and despite how shallow the water was, it held my PB chain pickerel that I landed that day. Do you like to eat the fish you catch? And do you plan on doing any catch and cooks? Other than a few times as a kid, I actually haven't eaten any fish I've caught. A lot of people say rock bass tastes good, so I want to try that. I'll need to get a cooking setup so I can cook the fish on the side of the river, but a catch and cook is another thing I really want to try next year. What do you like more, smallmouth or chain pickerel? As much as I love pickerel, I definitely prefer smallmouth. I love the way that pickerel just slam whatever lure you're using on that initial bite, but overall smallmouth bass definitely put up a better fight, and I encounter them a lot more too. I also like that smallmouth bass do not smell nearly as bad as pickerel do. They don't call them slime darts for nothing. What do you use to find your spots? There are two main tools I use to find fishing spots, and I thought I'd show them off by answering this question. Coming over from the 1th state, what are some good places to fish many species nearby Newcastle County? So the first tool I definitely use the most is Google Maps. Here we are in Newcastle County in Delaware. Now you mentioned wanting to catch many species, and a great place to do that is the confluence of two different rivers. There's usually a lot of fish activity where two rivers meet, and thankfully we got the Delaware River here, which is going to make that a little bit easier. So I'm just going to zoom in, I'm going to go along the Delaware and look for some spots that might hold some fish. This is a spot I would check out. We got a state park here. That's a really good sign because usually it means that there's some parking, this is publicly accessible, but the current is going to be feeding into the Delaware, and I guarantee you there are fish hanging out here for when smaller bait fish and other food sources get carried downstream. Now, another spot I might consider is right here. This is, I think, the Christina River, and what I love about it, let's go to the satellite view. You got parking, which is always important. You gotta make sure that you're able to park, and then you're not a very far walk from this bridge right here. You probably walk down here, and then look at this. You got a bunch of rapids here. Now, depending on what time of year, this water might be a little on the shallow side, but based off the vegetation, this was taken in the summer. There's still some good pools you could fish throughout the summertime, but I love, this looks like it's a dam or a waterfall. Oh, I would kill to fish right here. This is gonna be loaded. And the reason why waterfalls are often loaded with fish, you got a ton of water coming down here, but the current isn't gonna be super fast. So all the food is just gonna be dumped in this highly concentrated area. Not to mention that this water is gonna be much more oxygenated. So wouldn't surprise me if you had some smallmouth here, maybe some creek chubs and other sunfish types, but I would definitely give this spot a try. The other tool I use is an app called FishBrain. Now, I don't want to spend too much time with FishBrain because, unfortunately, you gotta pay for a subscription in order for it to be really useful here, but let's at least take a look at the spots that I found with Google Maps. So here's the first spot I found near the Delaware River, and you can see there are a good number of catches here. It looks like there are a good concentration of catches right here, and that makes perfect sense. Again, this is where the river's feeding, so it makes sense that there are fish here hanging out. If I want to see what kind of fish are being caught here, I can just click on one of these little spots. Oh, and what do you know? The cute little black drum. Cool. Now let's take a look at that other spot we saw on Google Maps. Yeah, this is loaded. Look at that. I can filter on the side here and see what fish species they got. Looks like we got largemouth, rock bass, smallmouth, spotted bass. That might be a mislabel. Ballfish, snakehead? Really? Let me see that. Oh, cool. This guy's catching snakehead. Yeah, so this looks like a multi-species hotspot right here. So definitely check out this spot. What's your biggest fish? Inches or pounds. The biggest fish I've caught was a common carp that I actually caught back in September, and you can check out on the channel. It was around 18 pounds and was 31 inches long. What a fight that was. If you haven't seen the video already, definitely check it out. What's the best day fishing you've ever had? For now, catching that carp was definitely the best day for me. It was the only fish I caught that day, but I had been trying to catch one for 6 months before then. I have never put so much effort into catching a fish, and it made landing it all the more special for me. What baitcaster would you recommend to someone who is starting? Unfortunately, I haven't used a baitcaster either, but if you aren't sure how much you're going to use it, I'd start with something cheap like this Abu Garcia reel. If you wanted to spend a little bit more, I'd go for this Fluger President baitcaster because I really love the President spinning reel. Is it okay to use Fluoro or mono on a baitcaster? Again, I haven't used one before, but I know it's most common to use braided line on a baitcaster. Yes, you can use either a fluorocarbon or monofilament line, but it begs the question, why use a baitcaster anyways? Most of the time, people use baitcasters over spinning reels for extra precision and strength. Naturally, it makes sense that braid is the most common line because it's the most sensitive and is the strongest for its diameter. How old are you? I probably shouldn't give an exact number, but I'm in my late 20s. My videos seem to resonate with people my age too, since it's the strongest demographic on my channel. Now here are 3 questions with the same answer. What's my favorite lure for catching
largemouth bass?
Whether I'm fishing largemouth or smallmouth, any time of year, my favorite lure is the Senko. I like to fish a 4-inch Senko Texas rigged with a 3/0 extra wide gap hook. I use it mostly in large rivers, but it works great in lakes and ponds too. Where are you from? What's your address? I live in New Hampshire, and while I won't give out my address, here's some coordinates if you want to look them up. Have you been fishing anywhere other than your home state? If so, what's the best place you've visited? For now, I've only fished in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine, and a tiny amount in North Carolina, but I didn't catch anything there. My favorite place from recent memory was a trip to Rumford, Maine this past summer. There's this beautiful river called the Swift River that I caught a brook trout out of. Sadly, it slipped my hand before I could get a picture, but I would love to go back there again someday. Will there be any large game fishing video? Well, I already caught a carp, which is the largest freshwater fish in New Hampshire. Anything larger than that around here would have to be caught offshore quite a ways. Maybe I'll do a tuna or shark fishing video at some point, but probably not anytime in the near future. I'm a fellow New England resident new to fishing. Do you continue open water fishing as our days get bitter cold? And if so, what adjustments do you make? I stopped fishing this year around mid-October, but was catching fish into early November last year. As the temperatures drop, I tend to have the best luck fishing shallow water bodies in the afternoon at the warmest time of the day. As the temps drop, the fish slow down too, so it's important to slow down your lure retrieve as well. Eventually the fish slow so much that they stop fighting when you reel them in, and that's usually when I pack it up for the season. It's not really fun just reeling in a slab of meat. What should I do because I can't go fishing in Minnesota right now? I'm able to sled, it has that much snow. I'm in the same boat here in New Hampshire, and you're already doing the first thing I'd recommend, which is watching this channel. Winter's also a great time to maintain and organize your gear to prepare for the spring. I would also take inventory on your tackle and order any lures or terminal tackle that you might be running low on. I also use this time to look for new fishing spots to try out in the spring using the tools I mentioned earlier. Will you make ice fishing content this winter? Ice fishing is one of those things I really want to try this winter, but if I do get around to it, it'll probably only be like 1 or 2 videos. The winter season belongs to Mrs. Bryce Goes Fishing, so I'll be spending more time with her and less time on the ice. I still have a backlog of fishing trips that I plan to share throughout the winter too. When will there be Fisherman Explains? Now this is a question I get a lot. When's the next Fisherman Explains video coming out? For now, I'm going to focus on other fishing videos. There might be enough material for one more video, but for better or for worse, Fisherman Explains is effectively dead. The channel stopped uploading videos over a month ago, and his most recent videos are either boring or just don't have enough material for me to call out. That being said, I would love to make other videos in that style. So if there's a video or a channel you'd like me to cover from a fisherman's point of view, let me know about it down in the comments, or send me an email. Would you consider doing informative fishing videos like how Fisherman Explains does, but without the AI slop? Yes, I definitely want to do more informative videos on this channel. Slop aside, I would want my videos to focus a little bit more on one topic instead of explaining a bunch of high-level topics. Going more in depth on one thing isn't as flashy for engagement, but my hope is that you'll be able to retain more of what I'm saying and hopefully learn something too. Do you know any really effective lures for stocked pond trout? Yes, there are 2 lures that I'd recommend time and time again for trout. With one exception, every trout I've ever caught was off of an inline spinner. Most of those were either a 1/16 or a 1/32 ounce rooster tail. I would also try using a small soft plastic jig, like a trout magnet or a Berkeley atomic tube. What's the craziest lure you've caught a fish on? Now that's a really hard question for me to answer since I usually play it pretty safe with lure selection. For now, I'd have to say it's the 5 1/4 inch Rapala floating minnow. I used it in a fishing challenge where I tried to catch a fish off every size of the lure, and it's easily the largest hardbait I own. Maybe I'll try something like the Strike King Tumbleweed next year. What's your most wholesome fishing moment so far? So earlier this year I was fishing near a park during an outdoor concert. I landed a fall fish and 2 young boys came running over to see it. So I got to spend some time showing it to them, teaching them a little bit about the fall fish, and it's really sweet just to see kids interested in fishing and nature in general. What got you into making fishing content? So there are 2 main reasons why I started this YouTube channel. First, I really wanted to share my fishing adventures with other people. Fishing's a real passion of mine, and I wanted to share that passion here on YouTube. My hope is that my videos might inspire others to get out there and have fishing adventures of their own. I also just really like having all of my fishing trips documented, especially now where it's December, it's really cold outside, I can't go fishing. It's really nice to look back at my videos and reminisce over the good times I've had this past year. Who's your inspiration? The biggest inspiration for me here on YouTube is Creek Fishing Adventures. You can probably see why if you've watched his videos before. He mostly does multi-species fishing with ultralight gear, which is the bread and butter for my channel. Another channel that inspired me is Fishman2114. He hasn't uploaded recently, but he has some really fun videos about fishing and keeping fish in aquariums. His channel really showed me that there's an audience for more informational videos on fishing here on YouTube. Did you have any YouTube channels before this one? Nope, this is my first YouTube channel, and I'm flattered you like my editing. I've done simple video cuts here and there for a long time, but most of what I know I learned this year. It probably doesn't come as a surprise that I actually spend more time editing than I do fishing. And that's really ringing true for this video, since it's my first time using a new video editor. But as with any skill, practice makes perfect. What video games do you like and play? I used to play a lot more before I started this channel. I grew up playing a lot of fishing games for the PlayStation 2. Sega Bass Fishing Duel and Rapala Pro Fishing were 2 of my favorites, though I'm also a really big fan of the Real Fishing series. Of course, being a kid in the early 2010s, I played a lot of Minecraft too. Every now and then, I also enjoy playing Stardew Valley as well. Might we ever get gaming fishing content? That's another thing I really want to try this winter. Not sure if I'll have time, but I would love to play a fishing game or 2 for the channel. If I don't have time for something like a game review, I might consider doing a live stream of playing a few fishing games, if that's something you guys would be interested in. What are some fish you'd want to catch in Alaska? Of course, I couldn't go to Alaska without salmon fishing. I'd love to catch a king salmon there. The Arctic grayling is also a bucket list fish for me. They look really cool. Not a fish, but I'd also love to see a willow grouse too someday. What's your favorite and least favorite fish to catch? This is a hard decision for me, but I would say my favorite fish to catch is the smallmouth bass. What I love about them is that no matter how big or small they are, they always put up a great fight for their size. It's also really fun to see them jump out of the water too. Now, it's even harder for me to choose a least favorite fish to catch, but I'd probably have to go with the white catfish or the white bullhead. I caught one this year completely by surprise, which was really exciting, but bullheads in general don't really put up much of a fight compared to other species, so they're not the most fun to catch. What's your favorite fish species for? Tastiest. It's a bland fish, but I really like the taste of haddock, especially in fish and chips. Hardest fighting? Definitely the common carp. I've never seen a fish fight as hard as the carp I caught. Easiest to catch? I would have to say the bluegill. I've caught dozens of them before, and they'll go after just about anything as long as it's not too big, and you can catch them just about anywhere. Hardest to catch? Once again, the common carp. I mean, it took me 6 months to land one. What is your sub goal for the end of the year? So I had 2 numbers in mind for my channel. My stretch goal for this year was 10,000, and it doesn't look like I'm gonna hit that, but I did have a more realistic goal of 7,500, which I hit just before making this video. So I'm really stoked, and I'm sure I'll hit 10,000 sometime next year. How much have you spent on fishing? I don't have an exact number, but within the last year, I think I've spent somewhere between $500 and $750 on fishing gear. That includes rods, reels, and tackle. And I'll be able to use most of it again in future years. Depending on how much I go out, I usually spend around $30 to $35 a month on lures during the season. Would you ever consider doing a Dollarama fishing challenge? So I actually had to look this up because I had never heard of Dollarama before, and it looks like it's a Canadian dollar store. I have a few dollar stores nearby and I'd love to do a fishing challenge with them, but I don't think I've actually seen any fishing gear at any of the stores near me. If I see some the next time I'm out, I'll be sure to do a fishing challenge for it too. I recently went to a new lake and learned that the only time you can catch fish are the first days after they're planted. Have you ever had an experience like this? How would you work around it? Something I've learned from stock trout fishing this year is that not all stocking locations are created equal. It doesn't even matter how many are stocked. If the conditions aren't favorable for trout, they won't last long. I find that they last longer in waters that aren't navigable, meaning that they aren't big enough to use a boat or a kayak in, and they're usually hanging out in pools that are harder to access. In the first 2 weeks after stocking a river, I was able to catch my first rainbow trout not far from the stocking location. 3 months later, I was able to catch a few more that were completely by surprise, and will be in my next video, but they were hanging out in places that could only be accessed through wet wading. So if they're still hanging out in the lake, try out those harder to access spots that no one else is fishing. If your channel gets successful, what's the largest project you'd want to do on the channel? I would love to do some fishing tourism and catch exotic fish around the world. I've always wanted to catch a yamame trout, but I'd have to go all the way to Japan if I want to catch one. Something a little more feasible that I've come up with is a 50 states fishing challenge, where I try to catch a different fish species in every US state. If I did one state per video, I could probably start as early as next year and finish it whenever I have the resources to travel the rest of the country. I've never fished for trout before. Do you have some tips for trout fly fishing? And can you give some advice for an aspiring content creator? So I don't have any fly fishing experience myself, but you did mention that you're looking for a rod, and I would try the Redington Path rod to start. It seems like a great entry-level option. I've only caught trout in rivers before, but I would try to look for deeper pools in the lake where the temperature doesn't fluctuate that much, since trout are pretty sensitive to temperature changes. Advice for aspiring content creators could honestly be its own video. In fact, maybe I'll do that. But here are the most important things I've learned in the last year. If you want to get monetized, focus on long-form content. It's much easier to reach the 4,000 watch hour requirement within a year than 10 million shorts views in 90 days. The title, thumbnail, and first 10-second hook are crucial to having a successful video. Your audio quality matters way more than your video quality. Fishing adjacent content, as in videos about fishing, tend to get more attention than simply videos of fishing. It's cliche, but practice makes perfect. The more you focus on every video being better than the last, the more you're going to learn, and the more your channel will grow too. And with that, 2025 comes to a close. Big thanks to all my channel members. You guys are awesome. And to all my viewers, thank you so much for all your support this year. This channel wouldn't be half of what it is today without you. I'm really excited to see what 2026 has in store, and I'm even more excited to share it here with you guys on the channel. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next year.